It's 7 p.m. in NYC and 7 p.m. in the Hudson Valley. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events. Thank you for joining us for a virtual day trip to wine country presented by Citi. We are here this evening to discover 4 amazing New York State wine selections, 2 from grapes that we all know, and 2 from very interesting and deliciously unique grape varieties, one of which is a single varietal selection and the other is a blend. So welcome everybody. Please feel free to ask any questions in the chat in Zoom while you're watching. And also, if you would, hit us in the chat right now and let us know where in the world you are tuning in from. I see Jeff and Lisa from Raleigh, North Carolina. Great to see you guys. We love to know where everybody's tuning in from. We get people from all over creation at this point, which is really fun and interesting for us. Naples, Florida. I think Naples is a first, and Poughkeepsie, and Linda from Long Island. Great to see you guys. Actually, Andrew, I am actually from Millbrook, New York, which is not far from Poughkeepsie. And so when I was a kid, we went to the big city. We went to Poughkeepsie. And Sunnyvale, California. Excellent. Beacon, love it. It's great to see everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. So this evening, speaking of Poughkeepsie and Millbrook, New York, and that part of the world, we are going to travel virtually to the Hudson Valley, specifically to New Paltz, New York. New Paltz is a town in Ulster County. It is about 80 miles from New York City. It's about 80 miles northwest of the city, just on the west side of the Hudson River. And the New York Times, I think, characterized it really well. They wrote an article last fall where they called New Paltz a sporty, brainy, cultured, and beautiful place, which is really fun. And the fact of the matter is that we love it up there, and we take our day trip to wine country. Our in-person tour goes up to the Hudson Valley and specifically to Robibero and to New Paltz. So it's a wonderful area. It's cradled in a mountain range. You can see in my background here the Shawangunk Mountains. It's famous for the Shawangunk Ridge, the Shawangunk where people go rock climbing. And New Paltz is also famous for being a vibrant village with a great music scene, farm-to-table dining, antiques, boutiques, cafes, and of course, the State University of New York and New Paltz campus, SUNY New Paltz. So it attracts a great audience and crowd up there. And there's wineries, because the Hudson Valley is one of New York State's 4 major wine regions. There are about 35 wineries in the region, up and down the Hudson Valley. So, of course, our theme for this evening's session is, wait for it, Hudson Valley wines. And like I said, all told, there are about 35 wineries in the area. Anybody, let us know in the chat, who's been to the Hudson Valley? Any of the folks watching? I mean, I know some of you are actually based in the Hudson Valley, but shout it out if you've been to the Hudson Valley. We love to see that. It is an amazing region. People are familiar with the Finger Lakes and North Fork of Long Island. The Hudson Valley is quite close to New York City, and a lot of people from the New York Metro are unaware that there's so many great wineries and it's such a vibrant wine growing area. So let's take a look at actually where we're headed. I am going to share my screen here and show you a map of the Hudson Valley, because it really is, we're really within, striking distance of New York. There in that red map pin is New Paltz on the west side of the Hudson River. And there, right below, 80 miles down, is New York City. If you would like to know more about Robibero Family Wines, which is where we're headed, you can go to robiberofamilyvineyards.com. And as we often do, there's a promo code. If you're interested in getting the wines tonight, for those of you who haven't already ordered them, you can order them during the show. You can order them afterwards. I think this promo code, our guest will confirm this, but this promo code is good for, the next few days, if not the next couple of weeks. So great to know, but that is the URL, Robibero Family Vineyards. And if you use the promo code NYWE21, it's 10% off and free shipping. So that is great to know, and a fun deal. So in short, I'll give you the quick version of Robibero. No pressure on our guests, but they're kind of stars. You should know that in 2016 and 17, Robibero Winery won the best red wine in the Hudson Valley for their Cabernet Franc. That's something that really recognizes the winemakers and the operation's commitment to the vineyard and the cellar. And basically what I can tell you, having been there a lot to Robibero, is that they produce handcrafted premium artisan wines that are distinctive in terms of the terroir that they come from, and they're very limited in production. So if you are interested in these types of wines, pick them up and get them, because every year there's new vintages, but at a certain point they go, people buy them. So without further ado, I want to bring our two guests in for the session. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome the winemaker Kristop Brown and the manager and assistant winemaker Jonathan Lander. Welcome, guys. Thanks for doing the show with us tonight.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for having us. I'm Jonathan.
Hi, Sam. Kristop here. What's up, everybody?
Great to see you guys. So tell us, where does the broadcast find you both this evening? Obviously, you're in the same place.
Yes, we're currently in my living room, right in New Paltz town.
Chateau Landers.
That's
Great place.
That's amazing. And so you're quite close to the winery and the production and the operation. Tell us, because you're both winemakers. At this moment in time, we're in March, late March, going into April. What's happening at the winery in terms of wine production, and what are the activities and what's happening?
You want me to field this one?
Yeah, take the cellar stuff for now.
I love this time of year because we're looking forward to 2021 and the grapes and how amazing everything's going to be, and we're pruning the vines and we're talking to all the people who we might get grapes from. So there's a lot of anticipation of, you don't know anything yet because the vines are still dormant, but you have these dreams of greatness. And at the same time, you're taking care of the 2020s. So your red wines are aging in the barrels, and you're pretty much finishing up bottling all of the 20 whites and rosés, which we have done for the most part. So I love this time of year. It's exciting to me.
And Kristop, did I characterize that correctly? And in honor of the grapes, I put some up in my background here, that, you are limited in purposely in terms of production. I mean, the wines that you make that people really love, I mean, if people like them and want them, like, pick them up, because at a certain point, a vintage will sell out.
Yeah, we don't produce a large quantity of wine, and we're paying a lot of attention to detail, and we're producing. Our biggest production is the 87 North, which how many cases do we have of that?
We're low on that last vintage. That one's down under 100.
Under 100 cases left. We make about 1,000 gallons of that. That's our highest production. So there's a lot of attention to detail, and our wines are our babies. Yeah, so they sell out quickly, unfortunately, but you can always come see us or go online.
No, that's great. And the 87 North, that's the most popular wine you make at the winery?
Yeah, that's our most popular. 50% Vidal Blanc, 50% Cayuga white, and it's just like an easy, crisp, refreshing style white. Great summer day kind of wine. I always say it's kind of like a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. People are very familiar, and that kind of helps them get into it. And that's the go-to. People go home with cases often.
And the winery, what would you say, sort of, for people not familiar? So we have people tuned in from California and North Carolina who have not had Robibero wines. what's the calling card of the winery? How would you characterize the winemaking style and the styles of wine you offer?
Well, as Kristop said, the attention to detail is such a big thing. There's certain things in the winemaking process that can be done where, you might make a little bit less of the wine, but you make, a more deeply flavored, more complex wine. Just it's nice. We're working with very small batches, so every ounce of wine, it gets such direct attention. But it's, the real calling card is we have these beautiful wines to offer in just a beautiful setting, but it's a laid back atmosphere. Anybody's welcome. Everyone's welcome. And we just want to share these wines with whoever's interested to, either try something new or try a New York State version of, a grape that they're familiar with already. We've got a little something for everyone, dry to sweet. But I do say, New York, cool climate, you've got some kind of lighter style wines typically for your reds. The whites are, you've got that pop from the acidity. I always compare them to kind of old world wines. I think that's an accurate, comparison. But yeah, I mean, we just want everyone to come in and just see what we're all about. Family owned, family operated. In some sense, everyone that's works there is part of the family. It's from some degree of friendship or actually being in the family, themselves. So I think that's really what the calling card is.
Yeah, no, that's great. I want to say, put a shout out to Diane, who's in Sunnyvale, California, has actually been to Robibero or been to the Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
In the past, which is great. I mean, we've got some true fans of the region and obviously the types of wines. I can say from my own experience, what you characterize is right on target, John, and that is that the atmosphere at the winery is just so great. It's so relaxed. It's the winery is up on a sort of a hillside, and it slopes down, and there's vines and there's vineyards below, and you have that great view because you're sort of on the slope.
Mm-hmm.
Technically is part of the slope back down to the Hudson River. There's some hills in between you and there, but
of course.
And it's like you also, the other thing that I love is that you take advantage of the farm to table food offering and charcuterie and cheese and stuff that's locally sourced charcuterie and cheese. And man, there's nothing better than being out on your deck on a beautiful day with a cheese board and charcuterie and a bottle of one of those great wines you make. I mean, it's amazing experience. The other thing I love too is that Harry, your owner, the fan of wood-fired pizza, and so you guys have the wood-fired pizza running out in the front. You know? So that's another great thing. So if you haven't been there, it's a special experience.
Sam, could I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
On a weekend in, say June or July, if you come in, you oftentimes will find Harry there, right in the front, like sitting there to hang out with,
or sometimes at the pizza oven.
Yeah, or John or myself, and it's pretty easy to convince us to give you a quick cellar tour. So this is the kind of thing where you won't get it at a big winery, at a big corporate winery. It's a warm, friendly feel. So I like that about the small Hudson Valley wineries. You have the opportunity to learn something from us because we're actually there, all the time.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kristop. I mean, for anybody, so for example, Portia who's watching is going to visit on April 15th.
Oh, we'll be there.
And staying nearby. And so Portia, find these guys and take that cellar tour because that really enhances the whole experience of understanding how and where the wines come from. In terms of the history, what was the year that Robibero was founded and started operating as a winery?
So that was 2010 was when the doors were opened for Robibero, but a couple of years of work went into getting it to that point when the doors opened. And I mean, it was all really started, Harry, as you mentioned, the owner, he used to make wine with his grandfather when he was growing up. And, later down the road, the opportunity came to open up a winery, and he still had that part of that with him, and saw it as, a great opportunity, a labor of love and a passion project to really get to go into. And, since the beginning, I mean, I've been with them for 5 years now, and I've seen a huge, level of growth. And, since the beginning, it's just been working forward and forward. But it all goes back to Harry and his kind of dream, his childhood memories, and just bringing it all back together and just enjoying what we do. I mean, that's why we're there.
Yeah. And you really get that feeling when you're at the winery enjoying the wines and just the experience there. The other thing I'd like to, part of the reason I asked that is 2010 is when you started the winery. It was only 2015 when Robibero was named Hudson Valley Winery of the Year. And the same year, and I have to say this because I think Kristop is relatively modest and not somebody who blows his own horn. That same year, Kristop was named Winemaker of the Year in the Hudson Valley. So literally 5 years, 5 scant years from founding, the level of the work sort of, paying off and getting recognized was amazing. So I just want to say that's a really cool thing, and something that when I first started coming there a few years ago, I took notice of right away. So Kristop, I have a question for you. You're from New York State.
No, I'm from Connecticut.
Oh, you're from Connecticut. Okay, but you're from the Northeast.
Yes.
Your journey training as a winemaker, you spent time out west. Tell us about that.
Initially it was Millbrook Winery, and then
my hometown.
I jumped from oh, you're from Millbrook, nice. And then I jumped from there to Benmarl, and I got experience 2 different winemakers in both of those places, John Graciano and Eric Miller. And I decided to get some experience out of state before, settled down in New York. So I decided to go to Washington State, and that was a great experience. It definitely affected the way I make wine. And I wanted to work at a bigger winery and kind of see what goes on out west. So yeah.
And where did you work out west?
I worked at Long Shadows Winery. So it was basically a place that hired all the best winemakers from all the different regions to make that variety, but in Washington State. So you had an all-star winemaker from Australia making the Syrah or Shiraz. You had a German winemaker making the Washington State Riesling. You had a French winemaker making the Merlot, and so on and so forth. So I got to work under all these amazing winemakers in one place, and it shaped my experience for sure.
And which one? So now I have to ask, which one of those expert winemaker in either French or Australian or German was most influenced what you do today at Robibero?
It may have been, I don't know, but Michel Roland was there making the Merlot. He was a Bordeaux guy, and he kind of showed me, you search for to make like the most, I don't know, he had a lot of passion, and he was so into Merlot that I kind of transferred that to Cab Franc. So you just chase this and you keep making it over and over again until you get it right, and you pay attention to every little detail. So, I mean, Cab Franc is not Merlot, but you can make the best of a wine if you know it, and it is not just knowing chemistry and knowing winemaking. It's to know that grape from that place and make it over and over and over and over again, and then you know how to do it.
For your Cab Francs, do you bring that fruit in from upstate, or do you grow it on site, or what?
We have 2 acres of estate Cab Franc, and we bring in Cab Franc from our good friend Xander Hargrave in Long Island, who runs Pellegrini.
I know Xander very well.
Yeah, so we're tight with him, and we've gotten nice grapes from Long Island from him, and we also make the estate Cab Franc, and we've gotten Finger Lakes as well. but our focus is the estate.
So I like to say, and I want to ask you if you would agree with this, if it's accurate in your view. I like to tell our audience that Cabernet Franc is the unofficial red wine grape of the state of New York.
Oh, for sure.
You agree? Yeah.
I wouldn't have agreed with you, 10, 12 years ago. I didn't think that it had what it took, but now I think it does. I changed my mind.
Well, it's super interesting because I believe it's one of the 6 noble grapes, one of the 6 basic foundational grapes for winemaking, but it's not one. A lot of Americans, Americans are, no offense to Americans, but they're boring. We all drink Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Cabernet Sauvignon and maybe some Sauvignon Blanc. And I'm always pushing people to get outside their comfort zone and drink wine from grapes that isn't what they normally have and what so many other people have, which is one of the reasons I'm excited about the second wine we're going to taste tonight, because it's from a grape that probably a lot of people haven't even heard of. So, so Cabernet Franc fits into that a little bit because it's sort of it's one of the lesser known of the common grapes.
Definitely.
For sure.
Yep. All right. So, and Jonathan, what about yourself? I mean, you manage the tasting room, and I might add very capably, you're one of our favorite places to visit when we bring groups of people for our wine tour.
Thank you, Sam.
You guys are amazing, and your staff is amazing. But one of the things that and you're pretty modest too. People don't know that you're also the assistant winemaker, and you're down there making wine in the production area, not just running the tasting room. How did you get into that, and what are some of the experiences that led you there?
Well, I mean, I've always enjoyed wine. Found myself the beginning of my kind of discovery for wine was just working in restaurants and seeing how it went with food and seeing that whole, that side of the industry, the service industry. That was also where I just learned that wine and food are really such an item that brings everybody together. And that was what kind of, caused me to fall in love with the wines and with the industry. Worked in a couple wine stores, and then I met the family, and they asked me to come on board. And I did not have very much experience with really any kind of production, but I always had a bit of a passion about chemistry, and put those two things together, winemaking is what you get. So that's kind of how I ended up with that. But I mean, I do enjoy the chemistry. I do enjoy the production side. I do enjoy the service of the wine and just helping people find, a wine that they love. It feels so good for me when I'm helping someone with a tasting, and they've just discovered something new, or they learned something new, and now they can go on and explore wine in their own way a little bit better. To me, that's what it's all about for me. That's my driving force, is just kind of sharing this beautiful passion of my own, to just spark a little something in somebody else. And that's what keeps me moving with all of it.
Now that's great. And I have to say that really comes across when we're there and you're doing your thing in the tasting room. It really comes across. And Susan, God bless you. Susan says her philosophy is when going to tasting rooms to try the wines you don't know.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right on, Susan.
We love that. All right. So who's ready to get started tasting these 4 wines? Anybody? Should we jump in?
Yeah.
I have to say one thing. I have one question before we start, and that is, who ordered the wines in advance? Anybody watching have the wines with them, or did they order them ahead of time? I'm just curious, because that will certainly. Oh, Andrew did. So good on you, Andrew. Does not mean you didn't order them. There's no issue, but it's always good to know if we have some people.
With Andrew, awesome.
Yeah.
If you're tasting along with us, that's awesome. Oh, and Natalie's in Nebraska. Yes, Natalie. Unfortunately, sorry. They only ship to New York State. What are you guys going to expand that?
There's been talk about it. It's hard to say right now because there's just a lot of different facets to making that happen. So I really don't have a concrete answer at this point, but we'd like to, if that, means anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you said, there's hoops you got to jump through. With all the different wineries we work with, I'm happy. Offline, Jonathan, if I can help with that process, there's a couple people I know who are in New York State wineries who ship all over the place. So that if they have any tips or pathways that are helpful,
Yeah.
I will facilitate. All right, so the first wine we are going to taste is the Chardonnay. So I was a little bit, I made a passing comment about Chardonnay being common, but this is not common Chardonnay. So I'm gonna put it up in my screen here.
Well, Chardonnay grows well in New York, so we're gonna go with it. There's probably more Chardonnay than there is Riesling growing here. I don't know the exact numbers on that, but
it's a cool climate varietal. Burgundy is a cool climate. New York's a cool climate. It keeps its acidity. You do see it, a good amount of it, but I feel like it's you don't see a lot of real traditional style Chardonnays.
So this is the grapes here. This is these are grapes you bring in, but you make the wine obviously on site. Are these
Correct.
Long Island? Are these from the North Fork?
This is Long Island, and once again, I was talking about Xander Hargrave. He sells us Chardonnay grapes year after year, and we've developed a nice relationship with him. He gives us some of the best fruit that he has to offer. We trust him, and once again, when I was talking about making the same wine from the same grape year after year, we've gotten this Chardonnay from him for about 6 years now. So we're starting to understand more about how to make it.
So what are the sort of distinctive tasting notes and characteristics of this Chardonnay?
We were going for oaky but not buttery. So sometimes you think those two things go hand in hand, oaky and buttery, when you think of a California Chardonnay. We were looking for nice oak but nice acidity, clean, and light to medium bodied. So you're going to get a lot of oak on this because we used about 40% new oak. We used some older barrels and some stainless steel. So a combination of all three things that you can do. So we were definitely looking for oak characteristics: vanilla, toasty, nutty, honey.
Yeah, the oak we feel just kind of gives it that extra level of kind of richness and decadence. There's so many of our wines that are crisp and bright and fruit forward. This one is that more kind of rich, decadent type of flavor. And everyone has its own place. So, I mean, aromatics, rich, toasty. For me, occasionally it's kind of like creme brulee. You just have that kind of sweet richness to it. Although to note, there is no sugar in the wine. It is fermented to, dryness in our barrels.
The point of using a nice brand new oak barrel is it gives you the perception of sweetness without there being any sugar. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
And is this French oak or American oak?
Yeah, we only use French oak. We use Burgundian oak, which is where Chardonnay came from initially.
Yep.
And some used oak from out west, and then some stainless steel. So a little best of both worlds, or all worlds there.
Kudos to you guys for making a wine in this style for Chardonnay. I, for one, I mean, there's the stainless steel fermentation. Only steel has been in vogue for a number of years now. I'm still a big fan of a great oak aged Chardonnay as well as I like the stainless steel fermented ones. And so I love the fact that you're doing this wine. And I'm embarrassed to say I don't think I've had this one before.
I was going to take a quick moment to shout out to Diana Sims. We know her very well and want to thank you for tuning in tonight.
Hey, Diana.
Diana, what's up? Thanks for joining us.
I am also coming to everybody from Long Island, so I'm with you, Diana. And Michael says, "Where's Harry?" Double question mark.
Where's Harry? He's chilling, watching this right now in Yonkers.
I can be sure of that.
Ardsley,
yes.
Sorry.
So before we move on to the second wine, what's the perfect dish or food to pair with this?
I'm gonna give this one to John because he's so good at this.
For this wine and a lot of other kind of traditional Chardonnays, but I have found this wine pairs absolutely incredible with, I make a nice truffle mac and cheese, but a lot of those white French cheeses, a nice truffle mac, and the oakiness of this wine, it's just, they match, that's my role for pairing. It is kind of match your intensities and they just work together. I mean, goat cheeses would all be very nice with this as well, but it does not beat a nice mac and cheese, nice homemade mac and cheese. That is.
I love that. You inspired me. I wish I had thought of that before this evening because I would have cooked some for dinner tonight.
Oh yeah.
I love that. That's a great.
Lots of butter in that, right?
Yeah, butter,
a lot of butter.
French cheeses, a little bit of a Gruyere, just a white mac and cheese. Those kind of classic old European cheeses just work.
Excellent. All right, so the next wine, and by the way, the Chardonnay, the 2019 Chardonnay is $28 a bottle from the winery website. So very price accessible. The next wine is the Traminette 2019, and I'll put it up on my screen here. This is the one that I'm really excited about talking about because it's from the grape is actually Traminette or a Traminer grape. So this is not a common grape. This is something that comes from upstate New York, but tell us about the grape and about this wine because I'm fascinated. And this is exactly what we were talking about, where Susan was saying, look, try the wines you don't know. This would be one that people won't ordinarily be familiar with.
Well, so this is a hybrid. And when you're talking about hybrids, you're talking about two different species that are crossbred, bred together. So we're dealing with one of the parents being, which everyone knows, Gewürztraminer, and the other parent being a white hybrid. And it has a long numerical name, so I'm not going to get into that one. But so what you have is it's partially native and it's partially European. And what you've got is a hardier grape that can grow east of the Mississippi and can handle the hot, humid conditions and all the disease pressure. At the same time, having the varietal character of Gewürztraminer, which could be muscatty, spicy, floral aromas to it. And I'll just briefly get into the background of it. It was hybridized it was either Iowa or Illinois. It was one of the I's, not Idaho, in 1965, and it wasn't released until the 80s. So it took a while for this to actually someone take the seeds, plant it, and start getting this grape growing. Traminette is awesome because if you go to Missouri, if you go to the Midwest, if you go to Iowa, once again, you're going to find them growing Traminette, and it's a really cool grape. So it grows all over, I was saying east of the Mississippi, and it's really nice Gewürz, muscatty, spicy, floral aromas to it. It's a fun grape, and it's a really cool hybrid. And if you look more into the history of it, it gets more interesting.
I do find with Gewürztraminer, one of my favorite qualities is on the nose. You kind of have that cerebral type of experience where it penetrates. It feels very intense on the nose. I do find that with Traminette, and that's why I enjoy this grape. That's why I think it's worth checking out.
And is this a wine that you guys are tasting it live right now? Is this a wine that makes you hungry or thirsty?
It can go both ways.
Both, really, because of it has a very high acidity and a small amount of residual sugar. So it's about the sugar acid balance. And this is something that you find in Austria and Germany with their Rieslings, with their Grüner Veltliners. And if you come over to New York, you're going to find it here too. Really high acid, but like nice small amount of sugar to balance that, and nice fruit and the complexity. So with the acid makes your mouth water. Yes, you want to be eating something with this for sure.
Right. So it's refreshing because of the acidity. Myra asks, is it sweeter?
This wine, our sugar content is 1.2%, putting it at just off dry. That level of sweetness, you'll get just a hint of a noticeable taste, but by no means would I call this a sweet wine.
It's not as sweet as a semi-dry Riesling.
It is not as sweet as a semi-dry, correct?
Right, and certainly not as sweet as a sweet Riesling, which is more of a dessert wine. Nancy says, sounds like a great summer wine. I would concur because of the high
Yeah.
acidity. It's refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you serve this, chilled or lightly chilled?
I mean, I'm a fan of how I would drink this wine is if I'm getting a bottle, I would start off with it chilled and enjoy that, but let it come up to temperature as you enjoy it and watch the flavors change at those different temperatures. Because it is great chilled, it is great also just slightly chilled, and I think that's always fun to do with white wines. I don't know many people that are going for that because everyone, whites you commonly think of enjoying cold, but there's some beautiful flavors that you don't get when it's at refrigerator temperature.
On a side note, this was stainless steel fermented and aged. So you could do it cold or, towards room temperature. With Chardonnays, especially, I didn't mention this before, oaky wines, you tend to want to have them closer to warmer, not like ice. If you have an ice cold Chardonnay, you're missing out on all the flavor. Just so I forgot to say that before.
You know what? Thank you, Kristop, for mentioning that because I'm a WSET trained person. People don't know the Chardonnay, like an oak Chardonnay, you want to serve it lightly chilled, not really chilled, because of what you just said.
Yeah. You're missing out.
Andrew says, my wife likes the Traminette. She likes sweeter wines in general, and the Traminette is sweet enough for her. So Myra, that's a pretty good indicator right there. It's got a little bit of sweetness, but it's not going to be, like a semi-dry Riesling that's got like strong sweetness.
It's got the structure to it. It feels full and intense and kind of, kind of as rich as you would find with a sweeter wine, but just with that lower sugar level. I think it's a good way.
That nice acid on the finish, like it leaves that nice tartness in your mouth when you're done drinking it. It doesn't leave you with the sweetness in your mouth.
Yep. Steve agrees with us, Kristop. Don't lock the fruit flavor up when it's too chilled. So
right on, Steve.
This, you know what, Jonathan, I can't wait to get there on our first tour, our first vineyard tour visit, which is hopefully coming up very soon in the next month or so. I really want to get a bottle of this Traminette and bring it home because this sounds like a wonderful wine for just casual drinking, or when you're going to the beach or the pool, or you're cooking outside. This sounds like a really fun wine. It's also super price accessible. It's $22.
Oh yeah.
So that's amazing. All right. So the next one we're going to is, I have a lot of questions about this. The New York State Tough, which is a blend. I'm going to put the label up in my screen here. I love the name. So first off, why is this wine called the New York State Tough?
So New York State Tough has, I'm sure, clearly direct relations to the COVID pandemic. For this wine, we give all healthcare workers a nice little discount, and that's kind of our version of New York State Tough. New York got hit pretty hard, and it was the healthcare workers and that whole side of things that pulled us to where we are now. And it's kind of our give back. We are New York Tough, and that they very much, all the healthcare workers have pulled us through that. That is the New York Tough. That is our label for it. That's why we call it that.
I love that. That's awesome. So and this is a blend of, it's a red wine, yeah?
Yes.
And it's a red blend that has like 4 or 5 different grapes that
four varietals, yes.
4 varietals. So tell us about this wine. What's its origin? What was the style you were going for here, and the notes?
Well, this is a Bordeaux style blend, so it has a lot of the Bordeaux varietals in it. And I was looking to make the Tough, but I didn't know what direction to go in, and I knew what wines I wanted to use. And this is where Jonathan's strengths come in. He's really good at blending and putting together, making a blend decision. And where I've got these wines and I want to know what direction to go in, sometimes you need two people really to get it going. So I was like, John, what are we going to do? We've got all these great wines and we got to make this blend. Like, we need some direction. So, I'll let you tell the rest of the story.
It was kind of an interesting story because back in last April was my golden birthday. I turned 27 on the 27th, and it was all in lockdown. Just ended up making a meal for myself and drinking some great wine. But that was kind of where I pulled inspiration for the percentages of the blend. Knowing the wines, of course, I said, let's do 27% Cab Sav, 27% Merlot, 27% Petit Verdot, and then throw the rest of it, our 2017 Estate Cab Franc. Just pulling off that 27 thing. It's meant something to me. So I said, let's try it out. And after making that exact blend, we did some bench trials of things similar, just veering slightly off those numbers there. And at the end of the day, this was the one that we bottled. So it was kind of cool. It was kind of fun.
We had about 5 different tufts, and we presented them to the Robibero family, and everyone tasted. It was a fun little event. And then we came up, the 27 one seemed to be the favorite.
That's so cool. That's a great.
I'm also born on the 27th as well. So I don't know, maybe that has something to do with it.
27 is divisible by 3. 3 is a magic number,
Yeah, it works.
So I think that's something to do with it. But it does have some of our estate Cabernet Franc in it.
No, that is so cool. So yeah, the grapes are Cab Sauv, Merlot,
Petit Verdot.
Petit Verdot, another grape that some people may not be familiar with, and then of course Cab Franc. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Not to be corny, but it's tough to make good reds in New York State. It's not easy.
It's really tough. I mean, one of the things that I've come to understand more and more is, cool climate versus warm climate wine growing regions. New York State
Old world.
Being a cool world region in the new world. People think, oh, I like Cabernet Sauvignon. I was like, guys, you can grow Cab Sauv in New York, and this wine has a little bit of Cab Sauv, but it's not as easy as growing it in California, which is a warm climate. And there's a reason you see palm trees in Los Angeles, but you don't see them in Brooklyn. It is a different climate.
Yes, very much so.
The warm climate grapes, they grow longer, they ripen more, they're sweeter, they have more water content. It's a different animal than a cool climate.
The big thing I noticed with warm climate, just that little bit longer of a growing season is what gives you that bit more of kind of fruit expression. Those fruity flavors for most varietals are late season.
Very jammy.
Absolutely.
And we don't have that in New York.
No, and I've come to really appreciate the New York wines, Kristop, even though when I got into the wine business 15 years ago, my sort of entry point was Zinfandel from California.
Oh, same here.
Which is super jammy, and it's a grape, but that's a grape that just doesn't grow here because of the
no.
So anyway, so what's your favorite dish to pair with the New York State Tough Red Blend?
If John made me the what's the dish from Ratatouille?
Oh, the ratatouille.
John made me the ratatouille.
Yeah, the zucchini, the squash, the tomato, the eggplant in like a Provence style tomato sauce.
Simple, rustic.
Yeah. Tomato based, giving it that nice pop and that kind of congruency with the wine. But I find those kind of French flavors really work well with this wine. It's got this wine has the peppery quality, and that just adds so much to that style of food, I think. And
in terms of body, you would characterize this as a medium bodied red or a light bodied red?
I think a medium.
Medium body.
Yeah.
Medium, I would say, yeah. Yep. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it to make the New York State Tough?
I'm pretty sure it was Tiffany Robibero's idea.
Yeah.
And she lit a fire under our asses, and we came out with something pretty good, I think.
And how's it doing in the tasting room?
It's doing really well. I mean, initially when it was first bottled, when it was quite so young, the peppery flavor was just a bit, too much in the front. I personally thought. But that's the thing, is these wines are meant to age for a couple of years to really come together. This wine, as time passes, has improved vastly, and now is kind of, most people that taste it are enjoying it and are taking a bottle home.
The Robibero red wines need at least 2 years. And what I find is that a lot of times when we're just about to sell out, the wine is just getting to where it's at its best. And, I'm not saying these wines need 20 years in your cellar, but, the 3 to 5 years and like the magic starts to happen and they really start to come together.
Buy the wine, hold on to it for a little bit. I mean, drink it now, it's all good, but that 2 years makes such a dramatic impact.
The other thing too, and these are like, I'm the master of basic, obvious suggestions. So let me just preface by saying that, with these red wines, decant them. I had a Barolo over last weekend, Saturday night. We poured a Barolo, and we decanted it. It just got better and better and better during the meal. By the dessert course, it was just amazing. So you want that oxidization. You want to get that wine to really react to coming out of the bottle. So. All right, so the last wine, speaking of red wine, great red wines, is the estate bottled Cabernet Franc. So these are the grapes you grow right there on the estate at the vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the 2018. I'm going to put it up on my screen and show everybody. So this one, ignore the date on these labels. This is the 2018 that we're talking about tonight. This picture shows 2012, but I think the label is similar. Yeah, Jonathan?
We have changed our label to a nice white label to kind of signify that this is our estate. This is something special to us. This is fantastic stuff.
And
yeah, where to begin?
What are the tasting notes on this one?
Can I dork out a little bit and tell you about the soil and everything?
Absolutely. Let's go full wine geek, Kristop.
So we have some heavy soils where we are, and we've got lots of clay, lots of shale, and it's hard to put a shovel into the ground, but these roots find their way down, for nutrients. When you grow Cab Franc on our soil, you get a heavily pigmented, highly tannic, intense Cabernet Franc. Like, I am amazed at how intense that our Cabernet Francs get. Just to show you what another one might be like from Long Island, where there's mostly sand. They're lighter, softer, not so tannic, and more gentle. Beautiful Cab Francs, but just
more fruity and
not so different. So we're dealing with something where we're putting this wine in brand new French oak barrels for at least 18 months, sometimes 3 years. And it's not a light-bodied affair. It's something you could really put down to age, or you could drink it now as well, which is what we're doing.
It's fantastic now, but this wine, I'd say 5 years is going to be really when it starts to come around. And I think that's always fun to taste the wines as they grow up. We like to kind of personify the wines a bit. But this one definitely, this is gonna have a long lifetime. This is gonna improve. It's just, it has the intensity, it has the flavor that just wants to get out. So I think some age for this wine in particular, being so intense, is going to really open it up.
So as a 2018, you probably just made it available for sale because it was aging and it was in the winery for a year and a half, almost 2 years. Yeah. Correct.
It's kind of it's officially available. We do have it in our tasting room and only available online just now as part of the New York Wine Events bundle, but not as its own little wine yet. We do want it to age a little more for people to enjoy it, when it's right. But we do have, it is available. You can buy it in store, you can buy it online. So it's ready to go, but it'll benefit quite a bit.
When you talked about the shale and the clay and the soil, looking in my background with the Mohonk mountain range, like, is that part of that equation, that the soil is like, there's all that activity from the glaciers and the Hudson Valley and the Hudson River, you get that really rich and diverse soil composition.
I wouldn't call it rich, but it's definitely diverse. Like, we don't, our soils are not that, like, they're not like, you know, you wouldn't want to plant corn in these fields. They're pretty rough, but grapes don't want that. You know, they want to struggle. I mean, they don't
We want
them to struggle.
Right. Right.
And actually, a couple more things about 2018. It actually was a very rainy season. This is a miracle wine. So we basically went through the vineyard during the rainy period, and if there was one rotten grape, we would pick it off the grape. We went through every single cluster and picked off. If you let one get rotten, then the whole thing in 10 days is rotten. So we allowed the grapes to survive, and then the rain let off, and then the ripening happened, and we got this wonderful wine. But we actually went through literally in every grape cluster and picked off anything. So a small producer can do that. You know, if you have 200 acres, that's not happening.
Right.
Yeah, we give them the baby treatment. These grapes, you know, the wine is made in the vineyard, so to speak. And this really shows our attention to detail in the vineyard. That's, you know, right, that you look at while you're tasting wines with us. You know, that's right on our property there, right? Part of it all.
No, that's amazing. I'm just gonna, well, if you guys would hold that bottle up again, because the one that I have is not really the right photo. So yeah, that's the one. And so, as a red wine, obviously single varietal, just Cabernet Franc.
100%.
What is the, you know, would you call it a medium bodied? Would you call it a full bodied red?
It's up there. It's a little more than medium, that's for sure.
Yeah, medium to full bodied.
Got it. And what's the meal or the dish, the food you would pair this with?
I mean, this one's gonna go with those rich, fatty meats, lamb, duck, you know, that kind of stuff, that those gamey kind of meats, and the peppery things. As far as my experience, you know, shows that's what works with this wine here.
Venison, you know.
Is it quite tannic? Does it have a little bit of that nice drying sensation?
Oh, absolutely.
It's fairly tannic and has a large amount of oak influence, but the wine stands up to it, so it's not overly oaked.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to share my screen and let everybody know this is how you get these wines. And I'm a huge fan of what you guys do at Robibero. And it's so great to visit, but I also have come to really appreciate the wines when I get a bottle and I bring it home and I have it with a good meal.
Oh yeah.
Especially when I remember your recommendations and I pair it with the right meal. That's the key.
Well, as long as you enjoy it, there is no wrong meal. That's one thing I always like to say for pairing. You know, if you like what you eat, you like what you drink, you know, that's the purpose of it all.
Absolutely. You know, the other night, we went out to dinner for my sister-in-law's birthday, and I actually had a Chablis with steak.
Interesting, yeah.
And
okay.
But it had a lot of structure, and you know, it was a classic Chablis, and it was great. So I agree, Jonathan. It's all about what works for you, what flavor come together. But I wanted to make sure everybody had this information about getting the wines. Any other questions from all of you guys watching? Thank you so much for tuning in. We have the winemakers here, so this is our chance. So hit us up in the chat if you have any questions whatsoever, and let us know. Are you guys, you're open these days? The tasting room is open and accommodating guests?
Tasting room is currently open for starting tomorrow, April 1st, for the month of April, Thursday through Monday, closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. and those hours are 11 to 6. We've got seated tastings. We pour for you at the table. We've got a cheese list. We've got some really nice local meats. We've got the pizzas on the weekends for pizzas. But that's 5 days a week right now. And come May, back to our 7 days a week. We'll be there every day. Come on up and enjoy some wine and some snacks and just a nice relaxing afternoon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there, and I don't know if Johnny is still doing the pizzas, but I love going out and getting a fresh
Yes.
wine from Johnny at the wood fire there.
And
Linda has a question. Do you library any of your wines at Robibero to sample later?
I
Yes.
have a comprehensive library list. Unfortunately, we don't sample those. It is kind of by at your own risk. I've got things going back to 2010 and around then. So we do have them available. If you find me, I keep that list and can certainly go through some older vintages with you. Just unfortunately not with tasting, but I can do my best to help you find one of those wines.
Awesome. And we have a couple of other questions. Susan asks, is the harvest in New York the same as out west, i.e. September through November?
Yeah, it goes actually like into November. So we've had snowstorms and then picked grapes. I mean, not every year, but let's just say that once in a while.
Did you inadvertently make ice wine?
Well, we avoided that somehow, but yeah, it didn't freeze.
Well, and we have, it's so great to see some fans here with people like Andrew who are regulars. I agree, Andrew, these wines are all delicious and I do recommend them highly as well. Guys, I want to thank you so much for doing this. It's been a blast for me, especially given the fact that we go to see you in person with our tour, and let's do it again soon. And we'll pick some other wines. I want to, like, for example, the 87 North. Like, I'd love to talk about that.
That'd be a fun one. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what started the whole thing, really.
I know. The story is great. If you guys watching, if you go to the Robibero Family Vineyard website, the story of how Harry ended up buying the winery is a great story. He was driving by and he was like, "Hey, this looks really great." And one thing led to another. So anyway, thank you guys for doing this. And thank you everyone for watching. It's great to see you guys, all of you. And tune in next week. We are going to be in the afternoon, Wednesday, next week, I'm sorry, is the 7th of April. My bad. We'll be in the evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to Sonoma County, to one of the finest wineries in Sonoma County, Quivira Vineyards. Amazing place. And join us then. And guys, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Great evening.